All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another live episode of Expanding the Conversation with Richard and Kofi. Today, well, this weekend is Father's Day weekend, right, Rich? Tomorrow's Father's Day, and both of us have talked about our roles as fathers before. Um, we both have two beautiful children each, and so today we were thinking about what we wanted to talk about. And someone suggested to me that a lot of people talk about young fathers, or especially when you start getting your children. We always say, and probably a lot of people say this: I want to give to my children what I didn't have. And so this idea that what is it that we didn't have that we're trying to give to our children? Because it's interesting, because a lot of people look and say, hey, I think you're spoiling your children, because a lot of the things you got, amounted to things like discipline. You were taught to survive, and a whole host of things. And then it appears that we are trying to make our children's lives really easy and maybe escape some suffering. But the question is that really the way that we want to raise our children, without any sort of quote unquote suffering in their lives, without any difficulties? Because we went through some, and I would venture to say that it was good for us, right? I would venture to say that a lot of it was good for us. Maybe there were some things that weren't. And so, how do we separate the things that we do want to give to our children and the things that we didn't have that we feel that we want to be able to give to them? I don't know if you've made this statement, Rich, but maybe we can talk about the list of things that we felt that we didn't have that we want to give to our children, but also in a general sense, what are some of those things that people are think they don't have that they're really trying to give to their children?
Yeah, morning everybody. Welcome. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, first and foremost. Happy Father's Day to my father, which I think I was fortunate to have a great father that taught me a lot and spent a lot of time with me, and instilled some good values. Parenting, Kofi, is interesting, right? It's probably the most important job we have, uh, but the least prepared we are for it. There's no manual. There's no instructions. I'm guessing there are places where people may be able to teach you a little bit about how to be a parent, but for the most part, um, we don't, right? And so it's commendable, I think, that we would set out to improve on anything that we've experienced before. But I've heard that statement many times, and I always believe that statements like those are very limiting, right? They set out to it's kind of easy to give my kids what I didn't have on some levels. On a material level, very easy, right? Yeah, we generally tend to consider ourselves not financially fortunate. Many of us, I know I considered myself at some point that I was not, and so we tend to set out and provide a little bit more for our kids so that maybe they have a little less want than we did on a material level. And certainly you can do that across the board, right? In terms of love and kindness and encouragement and all that stuff. But I think it's a very low bar to say that I want to give my kids what I didn't have, because I think we can achieve that easily. And so I don't personally use that statement, because I think there's a better way. There's a better way to go about parenting, as opposed to saying that I just want to give my kids what I didn't have growing up. Um, and I think the basic approach to that is that we can ask ourselves, like, what do our kids need to become good adults, right? Because essentially I think that's the task that we have as parents, is to help groom and nourish and nurture our kids to become responsible adults that have a positive impact in the societies that they live in, right? And so I think we can take a step back and ask what does that entail. but even if we go back to this whole idea of giving our kids what we didn't have, I feel like we do some injustice to our parents by not first examining what are all the things that I did have that are great for a human being, right, and a growing child, and how do I get how do I give that to my kids? And we've talked about this where we've probably let our kids down to some degree, where our social settings were very different. They were incredibly rich, right? The things we did growing up in our communities were very different from what we've offered our kids, and to some degree, I think we've let them down right? By not thinking about how do we give them what we did have, because I think we had a lot, and so I think a good starting point is to really examine as adults what are all the great things we have as kids, and how are we giving our kids some of that, as opposed to saying I want to give them everything that I didn't have. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that statement. I'm saying that we miss sometimes the basic stuff, and I think you touched on it a little bit earlier about some of the helpful sufferings that we may have endured as kids.
Yeah, right. It's sort of interesting because it really depends on who you are, like you said, and your own assessment of it. There's some people who are focused. Some of us who are heavily focused on the material aspect of it, right? So if you didn't grow up with, for example, brand name stuff, and you had certain experiences as a child where you felt that this maybe could have enhanced your childhood, I think we tend to maybe put that on our children and feel like maybe some of those material things are important. But like you said, they may not be, right? They absolutely may not be critical and important for the time in which our children live. And even some of our own experiences, while they are relevant, at a very fundamental level, our children are growing up in a time very different from our own. And like you said, even as we are trying to give them the things that we didn't have, they're looking and feeling like they're not getting the things that they think they need, you know?
That's right. They've got a long
Right?
list.
Yes, exactly, exactly. They're not getting the things they need. I know, like recently, been Rhonda has been talking, even to Jaden. They've been having conversations about things he feels that he needs, right? Now he's a teenager. A lot of conveniences, a lot of conveniences of life, right? Things like Wi-Fi, easy access to certain things. It's very easy for us to say, I didn't have that, right? So what I'm providing is good enough. So yeah, kids can always often feel like you're not giving them what they need. But you know what I can say though, as a father, that my parents gave me that I absolutely want to give to my children, right, is a loving and caring home. And I think regardless of where you are, particularly if you didn't have something like that, I think a statement like I want to give my children that to me makes really good sense, right? Because for those who may not have grown up in very loving circumstances and decided they want to have children, I mean, I applaud all the fathers out there that try to create a home base where children can feel at home, where they can feel protected, where they can feel loved, right? In order that they can be nurtured and grow up. So I think that's pretty solid right there. I think fathers and parents who want to give their children educational opportunities that they didn't have, I think is also a commendable thing that maybe we didn't have. When we look at maybe even choices in the educational system, there was a time when there was a lot of forcing or pressure to become doctor, lawyer, those sorts of things. But the field has really opened up now, and I think giving children the opportunity to pursue a wide range of choices in terms of what they want to be and how they want to grow up is something that certainly maybe we didn't have, but we could offer them, and removing that pressure to be something that we want them to be, and allowing them to really have a form of self-expression right? In terms of what career and so on that they want to choose. And certainly, I would want to give my children that. I have focused less on material things. I mean, I think basic material needs are important. The ability to travel, I think, is really important. That's something I learned from in my adult life because I could afford, traveling around as a child. But we did travel internally in Guyana. Moving from place to place. I would go with my father, for example, in certain campaigns, in his political active days, moving about the country. And my mother used to travel as an engineer up to Berbice and places. And just that, even that internal travel had an impact on me as a child. And certainly, I've seen the impact of international travel on my own children and my own life. And so, certainly, that's something that I wanted to expand and grow and also give to my children. So I think that there's certainly, Richard, some fundamental things that are commendable that we should, if we didn't have it, seek to give that to our children. And so this statement really depends on the individual, right? And what it is that we're talking about.
I agree. The important thing there, Kofi, is that like I love all the things that you laid out there because I think they're so powerful, right? Because even now in our later years in life, having maybe overcome the hurdle that we thought we had to overcome of having a little bit more money and being able to afford more, we realized that a lot of the things that we give to our kids actually don't require that much money. They don't require money at all. You talked about education and a loving and supporting environment. And one of the things I would say is cheering your kids on, right? Um, there's so many people that I've met that said, like my parents just told me one time I could be anything, and my parents didn't ever remember telling me that I could be anything I wanted to, but it had such an impact on them, right? And so I think those things are powerful, and even in my own circumstance as a kid growing up, like my parents were separated. I didn't live with my mother growing up, but I had my father in my life for a good bit of time, and I probably say that, and we did stuff, right? Like we would go to the seawall and sit down. We didn't have a car, so we'd hop in the back of a bicycle and we'd ride to the seawall, right? Or we'd go to the corner shop and my dad would drink a beer and I would drink something, and we would just sit there and talk. And I would probably say that that's one of the most significant relationships in my life growing up, right? That got me through those critical school years where I didn't necessarily feel pressured to do anything or be part of anything. And and the love and the support. The other thing I would say, because I think you touched on it a little bit there, as parents, for those that have kids in school, we tend to one place the burden on ourselves that we should know what our kids should become, or we should at least guide them or give them direction. And I actually think that that's not probably the best idea. I think if your kids come to you and ask for advice, then sure. But I think it's more important that you listen to your kids and ask them, what do they want to do. You can introduce them to different things because I don't know if you know, but I had asked you one time to show up to Zane's class just to have a presentation to talk about engineering, and that triggered him wanting to pursue engineering, right? And then he probably always had it in his mind, but as he understood a little bit more. So I think as parents, yes, we can introduce our kids to different things that they have an interest in, but like at least ask them what they're interested in, right? Don't just force them and tell them that they have to do X and they have to do Y, because they will probably do it. But I think at some point in their life, they're gonna stop and ask themselves, like, what did I really want to become? And I think that the less we can interrupt that sort of inner voice of and feeling, um, of what they want to become, I think the better adults they'll be in the later years of their life. And again, not to say that you can't give them advice and direction. But one of the things that I see as a parent is that I acknowledge I'm unqualified to be a great parent, or at least to give certain advice. And it doesn't mean that I'm not a source of of information for them, but it means to me that I've got to do a lot of work and research before I even advise them on things that I have no idea of. But the important thing there, before I shut up, is a lot of the things that are important um, for a kid's life and to nurture their growth is those same things, right? Love and support and encouragement, and to some degree, well, education is a big part of it, I would say. And then to some degree exposure, but even exposure is difficult to some parents. Like my dad doesn't like to travel, but my mom did, and so I think I got a little bit of that exploring blood from her. But I get it, right? Some parents are not going to travel, and so but don't restrict your kids from traveling if they have opportunities, like we did in school, right? We went to Escobar, we went to Bartica with on school trips that were great, right? You saw a different place, you hung out differently, and so and I would say supporting the travel would be a big part of it. I agree with that piece of it.
Well, good man. Hey, in closing, then I say Happy Father's Day to everybody. I think it's a really good thing to think about the things that really examining. I think Rich, you made some great points about being grateful and really sitting and thinking about all the things that we had as children. Sometimes we don't really think about how good some of those things were, and we're not grateful enough. And I think we have to really appreciate those influences. And I think some of those can be extended to our children. But I'd say this in closing. One of the probably the most important thing to give to your children is just to be there for your children. I saw a beautiful line out of a show yesterday where this person said, "I don't need you to save me. I don't need you to be a hero. I just need you." just And I think maybe that's what a lot of children just need, right? Just us in their lives. Yes, it's as simple as that. So those are my
Yeah,
closing. Happy Father's Day to everybody.
great points. And I'll say in closing, Kofi, you know, mothers get a lot of love, right? No doubt, they deserve it. But I think that we can never underscore the importance of the role a father plays in a kid's life, male or female. I think both of it
Yeah.
are critically important. So let's continue to play that role and recognize the importance of it, because we are critical to developing the next generation. But yeah, happy Father's Day to you, my brother.
Happy
Thank
Father's
you
Day to you.
for your good example. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there holding it down, doing all the hard work. Yeah, let's continue to expand the conversation. Bye, everybody.
Take care, guys. Bye.